That's me. Spring of 1965, 22 years old and absolutely terrified. That morning, I walked through those factory doors as the only woman on the floor among 300 men. I didn't know if I'd last the day. I stayed for 33 years. My name is Betty Morrison. I'm 79 years old, and this is the story they told me I'd never get to tell. Because back then, women like me, we weren't supposed to be there at all. I need to take you back to understand why this mattered so much. I grew up in a small town outside of Detroit. My father worked at the automotive plant. My mother stayed home with us, 5 kids. That's what you did. I was a good student. Loved math, actually. My teacher, Mrs. Henderson, she told me I should think about college. Can you imagine? In 1960, a working class girl like me going to college. My father laughed. Not mealy, mind you. He couldn't picture it. He said, Betty, you're going to make some man a wonderful wife. That's what matters. I graduated high school in 1961, 17 years old. All my girlfriends were getting engaged, planning weddings. Me, I got a job at the local diner, waitressing, made $1 an hour plus tips. Don't get me wrong, it was honest work, but I'd watch my father come home with his paycheck, and I knew he made 4 times what I did. For the first time, I started to wonder, why? I met my husband Tom at that diner. He was a regular, sweet man, mechanic at the garage down the street. We got married in 1963. I was 20 years old. Everyone said, now you can quit working, start a family. But here's what nobody talks about. Tom's salary as a mechanic, it wasn't enough. We wanted a house, we wanted kids, we needed 2 incomes. But the only jobs available to women paid next to nothing. One night, Tom comes home from work and he's got this newspaper. He circles an ad with his pencil. It's the factory where my father worked. They were hiring for the assembly line. The pay was $2.50 an hour. That was real money. I could double what I was making at the diner. But it said right there in the ad, men wanted for factory work. I looked at Tom and I said, they won't hire me. He said, maybe not. But what if they do? I was scared. I'm not going to lie to you. Everything in me said, don't do it. You'll be rejected. You'll be humiliated. But we needed the money. And somewhere deep down, there was this little voice saying, why not you? So I did something crazy. I put on my nicest dress, did my hair, and I walked into that factory to apply. The hiring manager was a man named Frank Cooper. Big guy, probably 50 years old, looked at me like I'd grown a second head when I walked into his office. Can I help you, miss? Office jobs are down the hall. I sat down without being invited, which was bold for me, and I said, I'm here about the assembly line position. He actually laughed, not a chuckle, a full belly laugh. He said, sweetheart, that job requires lifting 50-pound parts. You'll hurt yourself. Now, I could have left. Should have, probably. But I thought about Tom, about the house we wanted, about having enough money to not worry every single month. And I got angry. I stood up and I said, Mr. Cooper, I've been carrying 20-pound trays for 3 years at the diner. I grew up on a farm hauling hay bales. I can do this job. He stared at me. Long, uncomfortable silence. Then he said, you know what the men will say? How they'll treat you? I said, that's their problem, not mine. He hired me. To this day, I don't know why. Maybe he was curious. Maybe he respected the guts it took. Maybe he just needed workers. But he hired me. I started the following Monday, March 15th, 1965. I remember the exact date because it changed everything. That first morning, I wore dungarees. That's what we called jeans back then. and my father's old work shirt because I didn't own work clothes. Tom drove me, kissed me goodbye. I could see he was worried. I walked through those doors at 6 a.m. and the room went silent. 300 men. Every single one of them stopped and stared. Some looked confused, some looked angry, some looked, I don't even know how to describe it, like I'd violated something sacred. My supervisor, Bill Henderson, he walked up to me in front of everyone. He didn't smile. He said, "You're on station 12. Don't slow down the line. Don't ask for special treatment, and don't expect anyone to help you." Then he walked away. I found station 12. It was spot welding metal brackets onto frames. The guy next to me, he didn't introduce himself, didn't look at me, just kept working. The pieces came down the line, heavy, awkward. I picked up the first one, positioned it, hit the welding trigger, moved to the next, then the next. My arms were screaming after the first hour. By lunchtime, I had blisters, but I didn't stop. I couldn't, because every single man in that building was waiting for me to fail. Lunch break was, God, it was awful. There was a break room with tables. I walked in with my paper bag lunch, and there wasn't a single seat. Not because it was full, because the men got up and moved away from wherever I tried to sit. I ended up sitting on the floor in the hallway, eating my sandwich alone, trying not to cry. The afternoon shift was worse. One of the guys, I never learned his name, he started making these comments. Quiet enough the supervisor couldn't hear, but loud enough for me. "This ain't no place for a woman. You're going to get hurt, doll. Why don't you go home and cook dinner where you belong?" I didn't respond. I just kept working, welding, lifting, moving. My whole body hurt. My hands were bleeding through my gloves. But I did not stop. When that shift bell rang at 3 o'clock, I'd made it through my first day. I walked to my car, got in, locked the doors, and I broke down. I sobbed. Tom found me there 20 minutes later because I couldn't even drive home yet. He said, "You don't have to go back." And you know what I said? The hell I don't. Those first few months were the hardest thing I've ever done, and I've lived through a lot. Every single day, I faced that wall of hostility. Men who refused to talk to me, men who would sabotage my station, move my tools, loosen my equipment. One guy even put oil on my stool so I'd slip. The bathroom situation was humiliating. There was no women's restroom on the factory floor. I had to walk all the way to the office building, which took 10 minutes each way. I'd hold it for hours because I didn't want to waste work time and give them ammunition. But something started to happen around month 3. There was this older guy, Hank Peterson. He'd worked there 25 years. He never said much to anyone, just did his job. One day I dropped a whole box of brackets. They scattered everywhere. I'm scrambling to pick them up before the line backs up, and suddenly Hank is there helping me. He didn't say anything, just helped. Then walked back to his station. The next week, he nodded to me during break. Week after that, he sat at the same table, didn't talk, just sat there. It was like he was saying, "You're not alone." Slowly, very slowly, a few others started to come around. There was Eddie, young guy, maybe 23. His wife had just had a baby. He started asking me advice about baby things because I'd helped raise my younger siblings. There was Marcus, black man who dealt with his own prejudice in that factory. He understood what it felt like to be different. He started showing me shortcuts, better techniques. It wasn't most of them. I want to be clear about that. Most of the men never accepted me. But having even 3 or 4 allies, it made it bearable. About 6 months in, something happened that changed everything. We were working on a rush order, double shifts. Everyone was exhausted. This kid, Tommy, couldn't have been more than 19. He made a mistake, didn't set a piece right. The whole mechanism jammed, sparks flying, metal screeching. Tommy's hand got caught. Everyone froze, panicked, but I'd seen farm accidents. I knew you had to act fast. I hit the emergency shutoff, grabbed the first aid kit, and I got to him. His hand was bleeding badly, but nothing was severed. I wrapped it tight, elevated it, kept him calm until the medics arrived. The supervisor came running over. He looked at Tommy, looked at me, looked at the shutdown line. I thought I was fired. I'd stopped production. That was the ultimate sin. But he said, "Good work, Morrison." That was the first compliment I'd gotten in 6 months. Tommy came back 2 weeks later, hand all bandaged up. He walked right up to me in front of everyone and said, "Thank you for saving my hand." Then he shook it, my hand, in front of everyone. After that, the temperature changed, not everywhere, not with everyone, but enough. Enough that I could breathe a little easier. I worked that job for 5 years before I got pregnant with my first child. Back then, you couldn't keep working once you were visibly pregnant. Company policy. So I left in 1970. My daughter was born in March. Beautiful baby girl. We named her Sarah. I thought that was it for my factory career. I'd proven my point, earned my money. Now I'd be a mother. I was wrong. I stayed home with Sarah for 3 years. Had my son, Michael, in 1972. Tom was doing well as a mechanic by then. We'd bought our house. Life was good, but I missed it. The work, the paycheck that was mine. The feeling of being more than just mom or wife, though those things were important too. In 1973, things were changing in America. The women's movement was on the news every night. Gloria Steinem, Betty Friedan, women were talking about equality, about rights, about work. I called the factory, asked if they were hiring. This time, the conversation was different. They said, "Betty Morrison, Hank Peterson speaks highly of you. When can you start?" I went back in 1973, part-time at first, then full-time when Michael started school. But here's the thing, I wasn't the only woman anymore. There were 5 of us, then 10, then 20, and I'd become the one who showed them the ropes, the one who said, "It's tough, but you can do it," the one who'd been there first. In 1981, something incredible happened. The factory promoted me to line supervisor, management position. Me, the woman they didn't want to hire in the first place. I supervised that line for 12 years before I retired in 1993. In that time, I hired and trained over 200 workers, men and women, black, white, Hispanic, Asian. I didn't care. If you could do the work, you had a job. People ask me now, was it worth it? All that abuse, all that struggle? And I tell them this, every single woman who worked in that factory after me had it a little easier because I went first. Every paycheck I earned helped my kids go to college. Sarah's a teacher now, Michael's an engineer. But more than that, I proved something to myself. I wasn't just somebody's wife or somebody's mother or somebody's daughter. I was Betty Morrison, factory worker, Betty Morrison, supervisor, Betty Morrison, who could do anything she set her mind to. That factory closed in 2005, moved overseas like so many did. But when they had the closing ceremony, you know what they did? They named the training room after me. The Betty Morrison Training Center. The girl they didn't want, they put her name on the wall. I'm 79 years old now. Tom passed 3 years ago. We had 55 beautiful years together. My kids have kids. I'm a grandmother 4 times over. And you know what I tell my granddaughters when they're scared to try something new, When someone says they can't do something because they're a girl, I tell them about 1965, about walking through those factory doors, about bleeding hands and lonely lunches and men who wanted me to fail. And then I tell them about the name on the wall. Here's what I learned. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You just need to believe in yourself. And when you do something hard, something that scares you, something people say you can't do, and you do it anyway, you don't just change your life. You change the path for everyone who comes after you. Be brave, be stubborn, and don't let anyone tell you what you can't do.